afternoon, everybody. My name is David Miller, and I'm one of the directors of Bartfields Chartered Accountants, based here in Leeds. And I'd like to formally welcome you all to our event this afternoon. Leeds Business Week is an event that we decided to take part in, and we've been absolutely staggered and overwhelmed by the response. When we booked a session here in the Carriage Works, we had a room for 35 people, and we very quickly, without any marketing whatsoever, filled that room. So they moved us to a room with 50, 60, 80, and we had, at the start of the week, over 110 people booked onto the session, so we're absolutely staggered, and thank you very much for attending today. But today is about how we can show you how 3 sheets of A4 paper will help transform your business, bank account and your life. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome our speaker, Steve Pike, who has got over 413 recommendations on LinkedIn now, which makes him one of the UK's top 10 speakers. So if you could all put your hands together and welcome Steve.
Thank you very much for coming out this afternoon. It's my pleasure to be with you. Let me introduce you to this gentleman. I don't know whether you know who he is. His name is Daniel Kahneman, and he will change the way you think about your business and what you do in your business forever. Daniel won the Nobel Prize for Economics a little while ago, and whilst a lot of his Nobel Prize winning papers will be a little bit inaccessible, certainly to me if not to you, but his book, Thinking Fast and Slow, is an absolutely must read. It's still relatively heavy, but it is brilliantly powerful. Now, why is this man going to change everything for you? Because he won the prize for economics because he challenged the whole basis of economic and consequently much of business theory, management theory as well. You see, the whole basis of theory in the past has been that business people act rationally, and yet there's a huge body of behavioural economic information, evidence, overwhelmingly so, that says, no, they don't. In fact, this assumption of rationality is just absolutely wrong most of the time, and this goes to the very heart of one of the issues, or the issue we must address in our business, is to bring rationality back, because all the evidence suggests that no matter how rational we think we're behaving, no matter how rational we believe our decision-making processes are, they simply aren't. And that's fundamentally challenging. Now, it wouldn't matter unduly if what we were making decisions about was small and unimportant, but when it's the future of your business, when it's this wealth-generating engine that you've got, this massive asset, this hugely time-consuming thing, your business, they aren't small decisions. And we can't afford to make decisions based on the opposite of rationality, which is, the title of his book, Thinking Fast and Slow. The slow thinking is the analytical, it's the careful, it's the considered, it's the properly thought through, and the fast thinking is the instant, it's the emotionally driven, it's the knee-jerk reaction that most of our decisions are actually made by, even though we don't believe that's to be the case. And we have to introduce more of this rationality, more of this slow thinking, more of this analysis, where the issues are big. And where we're talking about the future of our businesses, the issues are most certainly very big indeed. Now, it wouldn't matter too much if what we got from our accountants, let me put my hand up, I am a chartered accountant, I'm ferociously proud to be a chartered accountant. It wouldn't matter too much if what we got from our accountants, our accounts, were actually giving us the information we need to sort of compensate for it and support us in rational decision making and prevent us falling into the trap of irrational decision making. And yet, a few years ago, the Institute of Chartered Accountants, the UK's leading professional body for accountants, published this report, in which, I'll give you a quote, in which it said this: every aircraft in the world today would be grounded if air traffic control relied on the same type of systems that companies use today to report their information. Current reporting formats provide too little, too late. This is the body that oversees the production or the training and qualifications of accountants in much of the UK. And this is what they say about the quality of information that most businesses have. It simply isn't good enough. Now, it complies with the law, don't get me wrong, it complies with accounting standards, but we need something more. We need something more, I think, because of this. If you go to the BBC's website and type in GDP tracker, you'll get this graph. I did that last week. This shows all of the recessions of the last 100 years and the declining gross domestic product, national income, from the beginning of the recession until we've come out of it. Now, all of these multicoloured lines are all of the previous 100 years recessions over the last 100 years. The one with the black arrow there, for example, is the Great Depression. That was the economic catastrophe that they said would never happen again. It would never be as bad as that again, because thanks to Keynes and the economists of that time, we'd worked out how to manage aggregate demand and bring things back round. Well, there's only been one recession in the last 100 years where we haven't got back to the starting point 5 and a bit years on, and that's the one we're in. This is the much vaunted recovery. And over here, in 2009, UK national income fell by more than any single year in the Great Depression. This is a fundamentally challenging time to be a business. But it does mean that if we're going to do something about that, rather than simply suffer the consequences, because the government of the Bank of England, Merlin King, a couple of years ago said, families face years of pain because of this, because of the adjustment process. Whose family? Your family, my family. We have a responsibility as business owners to our business, yes, but to the wider community, to our local economies, to the broader economy, at a micro level to make better and better and better decisions so that this red line gets better and better and better, because at the moment, it's pretty damn dire. If you go to the World Bank's website, they show national income per head, UK national income per head in dollar terms has fallen 10.8% in the last 4 years. In the US, it's gone up 6.7%. That's the combination of exchange rates and net immigration and this declining in sterling level of overall GDP. So the point is, in the past, when things were going fine, maybe we could get by without making fully rational decisions as business owners, because maybe it didn't matter so much. But in the face of this, boy, does it matter. Sadly, however, and here, the next slide is some evidence that not everybody will behave rationally, even in the face of that, because this is the reaction of some business owners. They bury their head in a deep, dark place and hope it will go away and sort itself out. Hope isn't a strategy, though, is it? You have to tackle the things that are making it go wrong and get better and better and better, little by little, because that's not an appropriate response. It's not even an adult one. So as we promised, what we're going to give you today are 3 single A4 sheets of paper that between them will help you address all of those issues. Help you address the findings of the Nobel Prize winning economist, help you put in place better decision-making processes, and help you do something about your business and its results for sure, but as a consequence, do something bigger for the Yorkshire economy and the national economy so that that red line gets better. And the really good news is those 3 free bits of paper are going to be given to you completely free of charge, which is fantastic. And that's thanks to Bartfields, so thank you very much to Bartfields. Just to make clear, I don't work for Bartfields, but I do work with Bartfields, and I work with lots of other accountants as well. And in 2011, I published a book after 4 years of extensive research looking at the UK's best accountants to help other accountants understand what was best practice so that they could get better too. Bartfields were one of the 41 firms that feature in there, which is why it's my pleasure and privilege to be here today. Thank you to Bartfields for having me. So you're going to get this stuff from them for free simply by filling in the feedback form if you've got a feedback form. Has anybody not got a feedback form? Can someone from the Bartfields team come round whilst I'm talking? Keep your hands up and we'll get some blue, because you're going to need one in order to get the free stuff, aren't you? You're going to want it. And also when you hand in your feedback form, I gather, there's a prize draw for some powerful software that you can use to create profit improvement plans. So keep your hands up if you haven't got a feedback form, and they'll come round with them. It's fantastic. Okay, now let's go back a few steps. A few years ago, Kaplan and Norton wrote a landmark book called The Balanced Business Scorecard, which changed, well before many of the behavioural economics findings actually, changed what business owners thought that they should start measuring and focusing on. And in truth, a fantastic landmark book, and used, last time I looked, by 70% of the Fortune 500, 70% of the most successful, profitable, largest businesses in the world use that sort of methodology as set out in that book. However, if you've read that book or any of their other follow-up books, I think, well, for me at least, maybe it's just me not being clever enough, but they're pretty difficult to get to grips with. I found the Balanced Scorecard approach somewhat heavy. So what we try to create is something which is much easier, much more accessible for owner-managed businesses. It's telling, I think, that the Balanced Scorecard is used by 70% of Fortune 500 businesses, i.e. mega corporations, but by a tiny percent of owner-managed businesses. Just too difficult. So we try to create something, and this is the first A4 piece of paper we're going to give you, that you can use, which is much simpler, much easier, much more powerful, much more accessible for for me at least, and hopefully for you too. And it's called the one-page plan because it fits on a single A4 piece of paper, as promised, as advertised on the tin. I'm going to open one up now as a PDF file and show you it and talk you through it. Now, unusually, for a document written in the West, you start not at the top but at the bottom. You start at the bottom because the bottom sets out the foundations, the crucial building block, the starting point for everything that follows. And at the bottom of your one-page plan, you set out what it is that you want your business to achieve. What you're trying to achieve with your business, its goals, its purpose, its vision, mission, whatever your language is. So in this particular case, they're building the world's leading widget manufacturing company, pretty generic, I suppose. However, it then becomes very specific. By the end of 2017, they'll have a 50% market share in the UK and be valued at 6 million quid. Now that gives a very clear set of targets, very clear set of aspirations for this particular business. That won't be your foundation, your starting point. Yours will be completely different. But once you've decided where it is you want to get to, and in many senses this is a bit like sat-nav. Remember what navigation used to be like before sat-nav? That hassle of reading maps, and especially when you're driving, trying to multitask, dangerous and difficult and ineffective. Sat-nav works out where you are now, gives you a situation analysis. We'll show you how to do that in a minute with one of the other pieces of paper. Then sat-nav gets you to decide where you want to go. This is where you want to go. And then sat-nav sets out the action plan for getting you from where you are to where you want to be. And that's what the rest of the document above does. So we'll see how that works. There are several sections to a one-page plan, structured document. So you build from and you start from what your business is trying to achieve. And then having decided that, you then have to discover what it is that you need to really focus on. You need to work out what are the crucial determinants that will determine whether or not you succeed in achieving that. Those are your underlying success drivers. What do you need to really focus on, really excel at? I'll give you some other specific examples as we go through. But they very often are going to include delighting your customers and keeping your team massively engaged and happy. By the way, some fantastic research by David Maister I'll come back to shortly that shows that if you make your team 10 to 15% happier, get this, write this number down, never forget it, on average profits go up 42%. Not by magic, but because a happy, enthusiastic, engaged, pulling in the same direction team do a better job and leave no stone unturned. So one of the things you should measure, as this one does, is how happy your team are. But there will be other key success factors that you need to focus on. You need to identify what those are, then in the second column you need to work out how you're going to measure those. Then in the third column you need to set a target and measure your actual performance against that target. So the second one down there, which is team happiness, they've set a target of 8.5 out of 10 on their weekly team happiness score, not once a year, weekly. And they are currently scoring 8.9, so they're doing very well, and they're kind of just going to continue building on that. In the right-hand corner, if there is corrective action, if there's new steps required, you can summarise also, alongside what's important, alongside your targets, alongside your actual performance, the essence of the action you're going to take in the next period, the next month usually, to move further ahead of or closer towards your goals, your targets. So you're going to have, every business in the room will have a different set of underlying success drivers and a different set of measures. You have to discover those. There's no button in Sage that will churn them out. But interestingly, most of these numbers don't come from a conventional set of accounts. That's the point. That's why the Institute said that annual accounts were as useful, the planes will be grounded because they don't give us the information we need. Whereas when you really think about what's your business trying to achieve, what does it need to excel at in order to achieve those, then you start to be focusing on the right things. Now the top half of the one-page plan has two other boxes, because whilst the bottom bit will be different for, the underlying success drivers will differ for every business, there are two elements to pretty much every business that are always present. You've got to sell stuff, and there are going to be cost and cash implications, aren't there? So there are two boxes just to make it easier to find the relevant drivers in those areas. And you need to work out what the business model is that drives sales, costs and profitability within your business. Now Bartfields can help you create a mathematically precise representation of your business model. But for the purposes of the one-page plan, it's going to be an iterative process anyway. What do you currently think are the key factors that are going to determine your sales, for example? For most businesses, the number of referrals you receive is critically important. In fact, if you read Frederick Reichel's book, I think it's called The One Question. He talks about the Net Promoter Score being the only question, the only number you ever actually need to measure in your business. And a huge proportion of the world's largest businesses now measure Net Promoter Scores. And it's a metric around referrals, because if customers refer you, it means you're pretty much doing everything right. But it's a very specific question. Look up Net Promoter Score, you'll see how that's measured. But there will be other drivers of your sales, the conversion rate from inquiry to actual customers and the average amount that they spend each time, or whatever it is relevant for you. And there'll be some cost and cash drivers. In each case, you're going to set a measurement system in place. You're going to set targets. You're going to monitor action performance. And in the action column, you're going to encapsulate the essence of the action. And/or you're going to congratulate the team for the achievements already. Because not only does it drive action, but it also drives encouragement, reward, appreciation. And then what floats to the top, what rises to the top of the one-page plan are the key results. And the words that should be tattooed on the inside of every business owner's eyelids are these 4 simple words: profits are a consequence. Profits are a consequence of doing the right things for the right people in the right way. I wish that was my phrase. It's not. It's back to right code again. But what flows to the top as a consequence of getting all the other things right are the profits. And not just the profits, but the other objectives that you set yourself. So remember, this particular business has set itself a target of being worth 6 million quid by 2017. So one of the things, of course, the key results that it will measure is its progress towards that valuation target. You can see it there as the first line of its results figure. Now, every business in the room will have a different set of metrics, a different set of targets, a different set of actions, but every business in the room can structure all of their key measures on one single A4 piece of paper, just like that. And when you do, everything changes. You have the information, you have the focus to make better decisions, to take better actions, and to consequently get better results. So let's build on that thought. Now we're going to give you a copy of that one-page plan so that you can use that as a starting point for creating your own. But let's take that further. Let's answer a couple of other crucial questions. Why is it so important to have that kind of approach to measuring what matters within our business, have our finger on the pulse of the things that matter so that we can make better decisions? And how do we pull that together? What do we need to look at? What do we need to measure? Where do we need to focus? McKinsey say this, and this is an incredibly well-known expression, isn't it? What you can measure, you can manage. When we start measuring stuff, yes, we can start managing it better. Ed Deming said what gets measured gets done. Not only can we start managing it, but we can start acting on it more effectively. And back to David Macer, the guy that discovered, is a professor at Harvard, who discovered that 15% increase in your team members' happiness will lead to a 42% increase in your profitability. Massively important statistic we simply cannot afford to ignore. And the other joy of that is, not only do you get 42% more profit, but you make people happier. Wow. By definition, you've made them happier. They help you make more money. Everybody wins. But anyway, going back to Maester, his quote that I wanted to use is this. It works. The simple act of measuring something causes it to improve. That's not magic. But when you measure stuff at a conscious and at a subconscious level, you start focusing on it, you start thinking about it, you start behaving differently towards it, you start doing better things and getting better results, little by little by little. If you don't measure your weight, you almost certainly won't get it down to the level you want it to be, will you? So it helps us manage, it helps us improve, it helps us take action. But actually the fundamental reason why you need to measure the stuff that matters in the sorts of way that we're suggesting is this: because people without information simply cannot act rationally. If you don't have the information to make rational decisions, and we have a natural predisposition not to be rational anyway, those two things just fire off each other, and what do you get? Suboptimal outcomes, i.e. you lose money. Whereas people with information are compelled to act more rationally, compelled to act more responsibly, because the implications are clear. They haven't got the get out of jail card, which is, well, I don't know what the facts are, so I'll just guess. And that's why it's so crucially important. You win a Nobel Prize for this stuff. if you're the first person to think of it. Obviously I won't. So when you start measuring stuff in this way, what's going to happen to your business? Well, you will set better goals driven by the whole aim of your business. Think of the one-page plan. You start off by articulating what it is you want to achieve. Then you identify the crucial areas you need to focus on, and you're forced to set targets for each and every single one of them. And that target and goal setting process brings focus, brings clarity, brings much more energy to bear on those things that really matter. You have better information on your progress towards achieving those goals. You've got up-to-date monthly information, at least. It's not a once-a-year process. That helps you make better decisions and take better actions, and as we'll see in a minute, that leads to better results, yes, for sure. You have more accountability, because now we know what we need to focus on and what's expected of us throughout the whole organisation. You have better focus, because it's all there on a single piece of paper. It's communicated more effectively, everybody understands it, everybody's on the same page, literally. There's much more clarity and simplicity, and it leads, crucially, all of that leads to better results for you, for your business, for the wider economy, for the national economy, for the region. Great book written by Sheeman and Lingle, Bullseye, it's called. That's, as you can tell, a screenshot from Amazon, hence the look inside bit. They found this: measure-managed companies, i.e. companies that manage themselves based on measuring the stuff that matters and focusing on that and making decisions rationally around the stuff that matters, i.e. on the one-page plan, perform better in 3 crucial ways. Way number 1, you'll make more money. In fact, on average, return on investment was almost twice as high. If you own that business, you'll get twice as much out of it financially. Sound interesting? Just by being measure-managed, as opposed to that fast thinking that Kahneman talks about, that intuitive, that knee-jerk reaction, that not making fully rational decisions. So you make more money. They're much better also at managing change because they understand the implications, they can plan ahead of it, everybody's on the same page, everybody's working towards the same goals, there's a greater sense of buy-in and involvement and engagement. Change happens, and boy, these are changing times, and managing change is a massive issue. And they're also seen as leaders. So that not only helps with their growth and their market penetration, but also with the pride that the business owner gets from running a business that is seen as leading. There's managing change effectively that's paying them a shed load of money and is building a stronger reputation because they're seen as leaders. Little example, and this is one that David alluded to in his email earlier today. This is a it's a scaffolder in Accrington, so the other side of the Pennines. His name's Ian Howarth. We do have him on video. If you want to see him actually saying these things in front of 300 accountants in the Elizabeth Conference Centre in Westminster, then we can show it to you. But on stage he talked about how over a 3-year period, so not overnight, but not over a whole lifetime either, over a 3-year period, by doing the stuff we're talking about here, the one-page plan approach, and a thing called board view, which I'll tell you about briefly in a second, that his turnover grew from 250,000 to 750. Now that's a few years old, it's about 1.4 million now, but the story on the video of these statistics, his profits over that same period grew from 30 grand to 200 grand, that's the £170,000 extra profits. His personal working day went from 12 crazy, mad hours a day, because actually at the beginning, yes, he did technically have a business, but really he was self-employed. And most self-employed people, you might recognise this, you're employed by an idiot, by a lunatic, who demands totally unreasonable things of you and pays you a pittance in return. That's what he was getting, a pittance in return, and working 12 hours a day, employed by himself. But by 3 years later, he had a genuine business that was measure-managed, that was run based on the numbers, with a team of people following his systems, using the information, making better decisions, and clearly making a lot more money. Not only changed his financial outcomes, but also his work-life balance his whole life. He was really into falconry, he spent a lot more time with birds. And in fact, a really lovely thing, which he didn't get time to say on the video, but I wish he had, he came out off stage afterwards, we were around the back in the green room talking. He said, you know, the thing that's actually best, it's not the money or the hours. Get this is a burly scaffolder from Lancashire. He said, you know what's the best thing? My mum's proud of me. Because up there at 250, 30 grand profits in 12 hours a day, she wasn't particularly proud of that. But now he had a real business, and it wasn't about the money. It was the fact he was in control of his life, created a better future for him and his family. That was the best thing for him. So David said that this stuff could help you change your lives. It certainly helped Ian change his life. John Harvey Jones, now I'm obviously showing my age, there will be some in the room who have no idea who this gentleman, this wonderful, inspiring gentleman is. But Sir John was rose from T-boy to chairman of ICI, or the top dog, MD or chairman, I forget which he was. And he was also the first ever television business troubleshooter. Literally, his program was called The Troubleshooter. And he would go in and advise ailing businesses on what they were doing wrong. Now, I don't have, off the top of my head, when I was putting the slides together, the exact quote, but this is a paraphrase which is incredibly close to what Sir John said. I saw him on stage several times. I did run an event which he was the keynote speaker. He'd already had a stroke by then, and he sat in a chair, but he still mesmerised an audience of 500 business owners. He said, the key to success is to sit down on a regular basis with a numerate outsider and focus on the things that matter. Now that's a paraphrase, but it's almost exactly what he said. So just break that down into the chunks. Sit down on a regular basis, that would be monthly, with a numerate, i.e. an accountant, outsider. Why an outsider? Because inside your business, you know all of the excuses and all the reasons why that's impossible and that can't be done, and all of the stuff that you brush under the carpet, which was easy and okay in the good times, but now we need to be more rational and disciplined about it. You need this outsider to challenge you. It's exactly why every successful business in the world has non-executive directors, numerate outsiders, to challenge them on the stuff that they would otherwise gloss over, isn't it? Sit down on a regular basis with a numerate outsider to focus on the things that really matter. That's what Sir John said. That's exactly what we're suggesting. Measuring stuff is great. You also need to sit down and really focus on doing something about it. And the two processes that I would suggest that you think about there are board view. If you remember back to my story, the slide that showed Ian Howell's story, the scaffolder, he'd used the one-page plan, but also board view, which is really just sitting down on a regular basis with his accountant, the accountant over in Accrington, as it happened in that case. But using the same process to focus as a numerate outsider on those numbers. It's called board view. Many people actually find that hugely valuable. Some prefer either as well or instead sit down with an extended board on a regular basis. And there's a thing called a business builder forum, which Bartfields run. I think there's another one starting relatively soon. If you're interested, you can tick a box to find out more on the feedback form, which is essentially where a group of non-competing business owners effectively act as this numerate outsiders for each other. You meet on a monthly basis to have a little bit of education and learning, but actually mostly to swap notes and to challenge each other and to make each other accountable and keep you on track and to share ideas as sort of numerate outsiders within your business. So those are two great ways of taking Sir John's idea, marrying it up with the one-page plan, and really getting the sorts of results that the scaffolder is getting. If you just do the maths, I got the spreadsheet out earlier, I won't bore you with the spreadsheet, these are the numbers. If you use this process to focus with laser-like precision on the stuff that matters in your business, and as a consequence, little by little, month by month, made slightly better decisions, and as a result, took slightly better actions and got slightly better results. And if you could improve your profits by 10% a year, which actually, in the case of the scaffolder, it was way more. And in the case of the research base for the book, it was way more than that. But if you could just do 10% a year, then over 20 years that adds up to a staggering 576% improvement. In other words, for every £100 of profit you would have had, you instead get just over £500,000. Kind of better than a poke in the eye with a sharp stick. That's the sort of stuff that's at stake when you really focus on doing the right things, measuring the right things, and driving your business based on that focus. So let me give you a few quick tips on what to specifically put on your one-page plan. Ron Baker said, imprecise measurement of the right things is infinitely more valuable than precise measurement of the wrong things. It's not about getting it right straight away. It's a living document, your one-page plan. It's an iterative document. You keep revisiting and improving it, changing what you measure until you find the right things, the things that really drive greater success for you, and continually updating your targets. You won't get it all right at the beginning. It's an iterative process. Focus on swans. But SWANs are stakeholder wants and needs, more specifically, measuring what matters to you so that the business gives you what you want, but also what matters to your customers so that it gives them what they want as well. Let me give you an example. Continental Airlines. Continental Airlines had filed for huge business, but had filed for bankruptcy in the States twice. Its performance had been pathetic. And then Gordon Bethune, I think that's how his surname's pronounced, turned the business around. And in his book, he explained how he did it. And this is what he said: you have to decide what constitutes success. If it's a fishing contest, are we trying to catch the heaviest or the longest fish? If it's a business, what are the indicators that it's doing well? He didn't have the numbers in there, I just added the numbered points to bring a little bit more clarity, but it is an exact quote. You have to explain then to the people who work with you what those numbers are, and they have to buy into that. You have to measure them and let them know how you're going to measure them, and you need to reward them if they succeed, and that's it. That was his formula for bringing an enormous business from the brink of bankruptcy. So what do you guess? As an airline, he actually, in their business, because their stakeholder wants and needs were pretty straightforward, they just had to maximise shareholder return and maximise profitability for the benefit of the shareholders. So they didn't have the same, perhaps, objectives you might have of building a business that you're proud of and gives you the right kind of work-life balance and makes a difference and employs people locally or whatever. Theirs was just single-dimensional financial return, and because of that, they actually measured just three things. And the three things they measured that completely turned the business around were: what proportion of the time do the planes arrive on time? What proportion of the time do we lose the customer's luggage? And what proportion of cases do we get other complaints? And those three numbers, basically, if you get those right, as a customer, you come back, you say thank you, you fly again, you tell other people, you don't whinge about the price, and the business turned around by focusing with laser-like precision on those as the drivers of its success, because the key stakeholders were going to be happy with those measures. But you have to be really, really careful that what you measure actually encourages the behaviour you're trying to encourage, as opposed to encouraging the wrong sorts of behaviour. So there was another airline that decided that actually it was a really good idea to measure the arrival of baggage, actually on the carousel for the customer. So what they measured was the time it took for the first bag to get from the plane onto the carousel. But the problem with that is what it encouraged the baggage handlers to do was get one bag on and go and have a cup of tea. It encouraged exactly the wrong behaviours. If instead they had simply measured the last bag, then it would have encouraged a completely different set of behaviours. Now, it's only a tiny change, yet its impact on the business was fundamental, which is why you have to keep working at making the measurement system better and better and better, and more focused on what turns out to be really important. And here's another crucial consideration when you're pulling your one-page plan together, which is don't try and measure too much stuff. Because that's the fallacy that we fall, that's the trap that we fall into. You've only got to measure the stuff that's most important. Probably, in your case, more than 3 metrics. In Continental's case, it was just 3, but in your case, probably more than 3. But certainly not more than 20. 20 plus is almost certainly too many. There was 16 in the little example I pulled up, and that's probably on the top end of 2. If you think there are other measures that are important, well, they may be important, but they're not probably important for the business as a whole. You can have one-page plans for teams, you can have one-page plans for divisions, you can have one-page plans for individuals. In fact, some of the most successful businesses we work with have exactly that, a personal one-page plan that has the same structure, but a different set of metrics that set the goals for that individual, their targets, their key performance areas, their actual performance, and the essence of the action they're going to take in the month to come. Michael Bash, one of the co-founders of FedEx, said this: people don't mind change, they mind being changed. And therefore that leads to this as an implication everywhere in our businesses. It's far better always to do things with people than to do it to them. And in this particular case, that means create the one-page plan with your team so that they're involved in understanding what it's about and what it contains and the measurement systems and the reason behind it, and their buy-in and their energy and their commitment will be so much greater. And then, having created the one-page plan, assign responsibility to a person for every single measure in there. Not that they alone have to do everything, but there's someone with management responsibility for every measure and accountability. But then when you fall short of the target, when the measure isn't coming up to quite where you want it to be, you don't blame that person, you blame the system, and you get the person to improve the system. So if your referrals are below this month, the target you've set, there's something not quite working as well as it should be with your referral system. So focus on the referral systems and improve them. By the way, you should have at least 5 different referral systems in every business. And then share your one-page plan with the entire team every single month. It's a single A4 piece of paper. It's not like the reams of paper that we used to get as management information systems, which were mind-boggling for even the board, let alone the rest of the team. Share the one-page plan with everybody, because people with information are compelled to act rationally. People without it just guess. Can't possibly act fully rationally. Now, I appreciate there may be some information on your one-page plan that you consider too competitively sensitive, that you don't trust your people. Well, that in itself is a really dangerous place to be, not trusting your people. But if it's an interim measure, you don't feel it's appropriate to fully trust them with all the information, then what you can simply do is you simply just tweak your one-page plan so that each of the targets is set to 100. It's just indexed to 100. And then you report performance as a percentage up or down on that 100. Which means that if that falls into the hand of someone else and it says our target for referrals was 100 and we were at 112, that just doesn't give them any information about actually how many referrals you received, does it? It's just all indexed and linked to a base unit. So that desensitizes, if that's an important issue for you. And that, by doing that, must mean that you can then show you can trust your team enough to give them the information they need to make better decisions so that you get better results. Those are some of my key thoughts, and David and the team will share much more with you how you can specifically pull together a one-page plan for your business, but those are some of the key thoughts about what should be on it. But how are you going to set the targets for what? You identify a series of measures, but where do you set the targets at? What are your benchmarks that you're trying to compare yourself with and exceed? Well, I think what you need for that is the second A4 piece of paper, which is a benchmarking analysis that compares your business to the rest of your industry, your competitors, across a whole raft of key metrics. It shows you both your numerical score and your relative performance. A long green bar means you're in the top third, a middle length amber bar in the middle third of the industry, and a short red one bottom third. Sets out in the centre column the sensitivities, i.e. if you could match, for example, the gross margin up here of others in your industry, the top 10%, that's actually the top quartile, the top 25%, but the same level of turnover in this particular case, profits would be £109,600 higher, just because your gross margin is actually relatively low compared to the industry. So it will automatically do these calculations for you and give you a starting point for an action plan. Now benchmarking is a hugely powerful and useful way to begin to get a handle on where to set your targets. Begin to get a handle on what's possible in your industry, but absolutely crucially don't. Never, ever, ever benchmark your business using any data from Companies House. Because that's a big temptation to use some kind of Companies House-driven database. Well, you ask any accountant, and if they're honest with you, they will agree with the following statement, which is Companies House benchmarking data is completely and absolutely meaningless. Totally misleading. Why? Because Companies House data goes into standard industrial classifications based on a little number that gets put on an annual return. Once a year, every company has to put in an annual return. The number that goes on that annual return is basically chosen at random. It shouldn't be, but it largely is. It's the closest miscellaneous category that anybody, because there's no verification process. It's just put anything down, it's okay. No one will ever check. No one will ever look into it. No one will ever find out the fact that we didn't spend 10 minutes looking through a detailed list to find the right one. And sadly, even if you put your right SIC code on your annual return, no one else will have done. So when you compare with the other randomly generated SIC codes, it's meaningless. So the database that Bartfields we use doesn't draw on data that has that flaw. So you've got the one-page plan structure, which we're going to give to you. You're going to have the benchmark report that will show you exactly how your business stacks up with others in this industry as a starting point for you setting your targets. Because then you need to use that information on an ongoing basis to create an action plan to make things better. And the one-page plan has your targets and has your actual performance and the essence of your action plan. How are you going to come up with the essence of your action plan? And that's the third A4 document, which I appreciate isn't terribly legible from here, but really what that's saying is that profits, we all know, are defined as sales minus costs. There are, in fact, 8 primary drivers, 8 primary ways that any business in this room and anywhere else can drive up its profitability. and we need to focus on all 8 of those. And this worksheet gives you a structured process to go through those and focus on them, and then drill down to the next level of detail, which is the underlying 23 strategies for really ramping up your profitability in applying those 8 drivers. So you'll also get that worksheet and be shown how to use that as the third A4 piece of paper, so that you can drive your profits up and continue to create a better action plan, and a better action plan. And all of those 3 A4 pieces of paper are completely free. The one-page plan, so that you can see exactly what one looks like and start creating your own. The benchmark report, so you can see exactly how your business compares to the rest of its industry. And the worksheet there, so that you can create an action plan for moving your business forward and forward and forward. And those are crucial, incredibly valuable components in bringing rational decision making back into our businesses, so that we create better results for ourselves, right? By the consequence of focusing on the right things, making better decisions, taking better actions, getting better results. So if you want that free stuff, you simply just tick the box on question 1. I think there's a certain, you circle the yes and put your details at the bottom, and hand the form into the red box when you leave. There's a big red box, so you can't miss it. Put yours in there, and we'll know that you want that stuff, and you just happily give it to them. That's what Bartfields will do for you as a thank you for your support today and support for Leeds Business Week. Personally, I'd like to do something as well, which is, for every one of those forms that goes in the box, whatever you've written on the form, if you put a form in the box, I will arrange for a child in Africa to get access to clean water, life-giving water for an entire year, at my expense, but on your behalf, just so that something even better comes of our time together today. And that's through a giving engine called Buy One, Give One. You might want to look at the website. You'll actually see evidence that I've done it by the end of the day, but you'll also see what other people are doing as well. So it's been my pleasure and privilege spending the time with you. It is exactly 1:45. That is exactly when we are supposed to finish, which anybody who's ever been to any of my events before will know that's an incredible rarity. It has been my pleasure spending these 45 minutes with you. I hope you found them valuable, I hope you found them useful, but most important of all, I hope you go and do something to make things better for you, for your businesses, and for this great country we live in. Thank you very much to Bartfields. Thank you for Leeds Business Week.